People being like, Ellen's a bitch. Ellen is a nasty person. She plays the victim.
Megyn Kelly just exposed Ellen DeGeneres' biggest secret on live TV. And it's worse than you think. Behind that fake smile and be kind routine was a toxic empire built on fear.
A lot of people saying that someone who seems so nice is not nice at all.
She doesn't seem nice.
Staff couldn't even make eye contact. And yet Ellen still played the victim while hoarding $500 million.
And she actually has the nerve to say that she was run out of Hollywood. This person
with $100 million in her pocket.
$450 million according to Forbes. That's a low estimate.
Ellen DeGeneres. You remember her, right? Smiling every day, dancing her way through daytime TV like she's never had a bad thought in her life? Yeah, turns out that was all smoke and mirrors. Because behind that pastel suit and forced giggle, Ellen was reportedly running her studio like a dictatorship with glitter on top.
The misstepping on their sacred cows of gender or race or sexuality.
Yeah.
But she was said to be a nasty biatch, and that's Ellen DeGeneres.
Her famous little phrase, be kind to one another, might as well have been, bow before me, and don't you dare make eye contact, because that's literally what insiders say happened. According to former staffers, the rule was simple. Do not, under any circumstances, look Ellen in the eye. Who even makes that a rule unless you're playing the final boss in a dystopian video game?
You were not allowed to make eye contact with Ellen in the halls of that show. If you saw her, this is not a nice person.
And we're not talking about one or two bitter ex-employees here. This was a wave. It all hit the fan in 2019 when Dakota Johnson, of all people, casually obliterated Ellen's fake narrative live on air. Ellen tried to publicly guilt-trip Dakota about not inviting her to a birthday party, and Dakota straight up corrected her, saying she did invite Ellen, and Ellen blew it off.
You're allowed to be a bitch, right? You're allowed to be a bitch. You're allowed to be nasty to people. You're accomplished. You're a comedian. You did the whole thing.
That awkward silence that followed, that was the sound of Ellen's nice girl mask slipping right off her face in real time. And people noticed. It was like everyone collectively said, wait, maybe she's not so nice after all.
Her show got canceled after she had this testy exchange with Dakota Johnson, where something happened where Dakota said, I had this birthday party, and Ellen said, well, why didn't you invite me? You didn't invite me. And she said, no, I did invite you, Ellen. That's not what happened.
Then, in 2020, the dam broke. A viral Twitter thread asked people to share their Ellen was mean to me stories, and boy, did the floodgates open. People came out with tales that ranged from cold indifference to straight-up workplace cruelty. We're talking dozens and dozens of people describing the same exact vibe, Ellen being a total nightmare behind the scenes while doing jazz hands in front of the camera.
And then tried to play the victim on the set with her anyway. It led to article after article of people being like, Ellen's a bitch. Ellen is a nasty person.
But instead of owning up to any of it, what did Ellen do? She whined about being run out of Hollywood. I mean, really? You're worth $450 million, still getting Netflix deals, and you're out here pretending to be a victim? Please, if this is cancellation, then cancel me too. Just make sure it comes with a streaming special and a Montecito mansion.
People have a very poor judge of character. She doesn't seem nice. It seems forced. People that are like that all the time, she doesn't seem nice. It's very forced. And whatever, you're allowed to be a bitch, right? You're allowed to be a bitch. You're allowed to be nasty to people.
And speaking of behind the scenes, let's talk about what working on Ellen's show was reportedly like. You think bad bosses are a problem? Try being on a set where even making eye contact was considered a fireable offense. Joe Rogan absolutely torched her on this. He compared the environment to Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib, actual torture sites.
All these staffers started to come out, not for nothing, but I know a guy, I know him very well, whose sister worked for her, who said, you were not allowed to make eye contact with Ellen in the halls of that show.
Interns supposedly had to deal with bizarre punishments. Rogan joked that if you were late, they'd throw a hood over your head. That sounds like satire, but the fact that it even sounds believable tells you everything. And HR? Good luck. Apparently, complaints vanished into thin air. Imagine being a low-level staffer thinking you finally made it in Hollywood, only to find out you've entered some weird psychological boot camp led by a woman whose whole brand is be kind.
Be kind girl wasn't kind. That was the headline. Here's the problem. I'm a comedian who got a talk show, and I ended the show every day by saying, be kind to one another. Had I ended my show by saying, go fuck yourselves.
But you want to see real hypocrisy? It's that massive gap between her brand and her behavior. This was someone plastered all over TV telling people to love, be nice, support each other. Meanwhile, she's allegedly scaring the life out of her own crew and making guests uncomfortable. It's like if Santa Claus ran a sweatshop. How are you going to talk about kindness when your whole set allegedly runs on fear and NDA agreements?
People would have been pleasantly surprised to find out I'm kind.
Well, yeah, that's disingenuous. That's and this is
And don't even try to defend it by saying she's a comedian. Yeah, comedians make edgy jokes, but when you've spent 2 decades branding yourself as kindness incarnate, maybe don't joke about prison when the entire world is actually suffering. Rogan and Kelly were brutal in pointing out how her jokes weren't funny anymore, just hollow and dripping with resentment.
And I would just say for Ellen, the resentment, you have to get over resentment to whatever addiction or addictive qualities happen, to get over it.
The woman who used to dance on stage now just whines into a Netflix mic and wonders why nobody claps. She's not the be kind queen anymore. She's a has-been punchline in a pastel suit, clinging to relevance like it's the last pair of white sneakers in the clearance aisle.
But when you don't get over your grievances and you let it fester and resent and take it out on people.
So let's not pretend Ellen's fall from grace was some shocking twist. It wasn't a gotcha moment. It was a slow, painful unraveling of a control freak who spent years disguising ego as empathy. This wasn't just one scandal that accidentally slipped out. No, it was years of resentment bubbling beneath that sparkly stage lighting.
People on Earth to be feeling sorry for herself, Ellen DeGeneres should not be on the list.
She should at least, but make a real apology and do it.
There's no apology.
Ellen wasn't canceled. She self-destructed. Because when you treat guests like props, staff like prisoners, and yourself like a victim, eventually the curtain falls. And in Ellen's case, it dropped hard.
Hello, you haven't been canceled if you are doing a Netflix special. She got $20 million for the one before this. I'm sure she's fine.
I'm sure she's fine.
Behind that quirky facade was a woman micromanaging every inch of her empire. We're talking about someone who allegedly made guests uncomfortable on the regular. Can you imagine coming onto a show expecting lighthearted fun, and instead you're navigating landmines with someone who shifts blame like it's a party trick? Ellen had a habit of controlling conversations, twisting situations, and somehow always ending up the one who was wronged. Even when it was obviously her doing the damage, she'd paint herself as the misunderstood underdog, queen of the pity party.
She had to hold back that she was a lesbian for years, and ABC told me you couldn't come out. I mean, that frustration would create an anger and a resentment that I think is understandable for people.
And then came Megyn Kelly, who didn't hold back for a second. She called Ellen out for trying to repackage her tantrum as a tale of Hollywood victimhood. According to Ellen, she wasn't a multimillionaire mogul facing well-earned criticism. No, she was the target of brutal double standards for women and lesbians. Really? You're sitting on nearly $500 million, and you want people to feel sorry for you because your passive-aggressive bullying finally caught up to you? Come on.
They're going to let her back in, Rob, because she's a lesbian, she's a leftist, and she didn't hit one of their sacred cows. Nastiness, that's their bread and butter.
But wait, Ellen wasn't done. After all that chaos, she decides it's time for a comeback. Enter the Netflix special no one asked for. In it, she makes jokes about being kicked out of show business, like she's some scrappy underdog clawing her way back from the ashes. Except, you weren't kicked out, Ellen. You took your hundreds of millions and walked straight into another fat paycheck. Megyn Kelly said it best. You haven't been canceled if you're filming a Netflix special, especially not when your last one earned you $20 million. You're not exiled. You're thriving. You're just mad that people finally stopped applauding your dance moves and started asking questions.
What you're not allowed to do is have a Guantanamo Bay situation in the backstage of your show where everybody's walking around afraid for their life, and it's like Abu Ghraib where they're hooked up to wires and they
Dogs
have like
around them.
Yeah, she's got dogs and hoods.
And let's talk about the kind of jokes she's making. Ellen says, "Had I ended my show by saying, 'Go fuck yourself,' people would be pleasantly surprised to find out I was kind. That's not edgy. That's not funny. That's damage control disguised as a punchline. It's a sad little smirk at accountability, trying to convince the audience that the backlash was all a big misunderstanding. Newsflash, no one's laughing, Ellen, because we've all heard the stories. This isn't a rebranding, it's a non-apology tour."
I think a lot of the cancel culture shit is probably these motherfuckers want those jobs.
Ooh.
They're like, how long is this bitch going to be dancing? I can dance with Hillary Clinton. I could do the Charleston with Henry Kissinger, whatever the fuck she does out there.
Rogan and Kelly both tore into this charade. They called it exactly what it is. Ellen deflecting, spinning, rewriting her narrative so she doesn't have to own up to years of arrogant, entitled behavior. And the cherry on top? Ellen's not hurting. Far from it. With her investments, real estate, and massive art collection, her net worth could easily pass $500 million. And yet, here she is, sobbing about how tough Hollywood's been on her. Sorry, but no one with $500 million and a Netflix deal gets to play the underdog.
Now she's out there saying, I was run out of Hollywood. She's actually reportedly complaining about how hard it is for women in America with the double standards.
Look at Oprah, how hard it is for her.
Oh, she's got, like 10 houses, Ellen DeGeneres?
Michelle Obama, look how hard it is for women in America. They're hurting.
She wasn't held accountable for being controversial. She was held accountable for being fake. And once that illusion broke, no dance number or fake humility could put it back together again. If this shocked you, hit that subscribe button because the next celebrity kindness act we expose might be even uglier.